When it comes to the joiner problem, I kind of want to step you through the process that typically happens. So as you'd imagine, there's, the hiring process goes well. Eventually that person that you've selected says, yes, they do want to join the company. At that point, usually they go through a process within IT where they add them as a user, whether that's through Active Directory, Entra ID, it doesn't really matter, but you're adding that person to the company. Now, the next step is that now you have to end up putting them or giving them access to the software that they need to do their job. And this is where it gets really complicated because one, more often than not, people need access to more than one software. It's a handful of software. It's dozens of software it can be. And usually what ends up happening there is that you take a gold standard user, somebody who is, this is the person that has all the roles that you'd end up assigning to them, like they're in the Department of Engineers. They are based in the US. Their security clearance is level 1. Their all of the different attributes that make up who they are typically end up getting added as roles. But these roles are often just simply cloned from that master user. And what ends up happening is that usually that person who comes on board is typically inheriting more access than what they actually need in order to do their job. Not only that, like I said before, it's something that has to happen on every single application that they touch. So if there's, let's just say, a dozen applications that this user has to work with, all of a sudden there has to be somebody who has to interact with every single one of those applications in order to add them as a user. Unfortunately, what ends up happening there quite often is you end up with a situation of human error getting involved. One thing I didn't mention, for anybody who does have questions, feel free to put it in the chat. We will try to get through them as we go. Otherwise, I will address them at the end of the presentation. Now, once we understand what the problem is, let's take a look at how ABAC, and not just simply axiomatics, but how attribute-based access controls works. The way it would happen is typically in the same sense. You have that new user coming on board, and the first step is that IT adds all the data points about that user into Active Directory or Entra ID, and those data points are what make up who the user is. So as an example, we would end up with the fact that, sure, it's John Doe and he's based in the US, but more than that, their department is engineering. Their job title would be software engineer. Their location is they work in office, they don't work remotely. And their employee status, obviously in this case, they are an active employee. What that does, that makes up not just every data point about the user, but then rather than having to go against building out roles for each and every one of these users, we're able to pull those attributes as the user tries to access information. So the difference would be that instead of having to now provision that user based on their attributes, they would already have access to information based on the rules or the policies that have been defined already. So in this case, we already have rules or policies based on our existing users that says if the user's department matches the department that they're required for the resource, they'll have access. If your job title is listed as one of the roles allowed to access the resource, again, you'll be granted access, and so on. But with all that being said, I think, Kyle, it probably makes more sense to just jump right in. Let's take a look at a demo.
if a user was to join a company, such as in this instance, we have a healthcare company demo app. So we have a user here, Laura, and Laura just got hired to work in the claims division of this insurance company. So right now, when we authenticate into the application, we don't see any options for Laura because her attributes aren't set yet because she just joined the company. Now, when we go to our LDAP connection, and this could be any data source of any kind, it could be SQL connection, an Active Directory, Azure connection of some sort. We can just go in and add our values for Laura's um, persona. And now if we just give her her job title and just and now we have all these other attributes as well, and as many attributes as you can use as many attributes as you want to give a more fine grained approach to authorization. But when we reload, we can see we have now options for Aurora to go through.
So what we're basically looking at here is a situation where if you were to go look at where these attributes are stored, in our case, so Laura would have been added to the company directory. She would have had access to the different. She would have been an employee, obviously. But what hadn't happened is that she hadn't been activated. Her status wouldn't have been an active user at this point. So Kyle behind the scenes basically just made her an official insurance agent. As soon as that happened, everything that Laura is trying to access within this application all of a sudden becomes live, real-time information that she can now access. What is really amazing about what we just saw, and it's almost anticlimactic because it's just so easy, is the idea that this is happening not just again in the one application that we're looking at. It would happen for every application that Laura needs access to. It is instant, it's available, it's happening in real time, and it removes all of that potential human error from the situation.